Hey everybody, just after talking with American Australian country singer-songwriter guitarist Danni Stefanetti. We talked about our hometown in Perth, Australia, musical inspirations, nostalgic childhood songs, playing the Sydney Opera House, a snippet of single 17 stars, defining her style of music, vinyl records, the ability to channel soulful storytelling, and more. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Danni. Danni, hello.
Hi, Jigme. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. First off, I need to ask you about how has your just schedule been? Has it been hectic for you?
I've had quite an amazing journey from growing up in Perth, this little beach town in Australia. And it's a very quiet neighborhood. And I picked up the guitar when I was 8, and then I was playing at little clubs, open mics, um, red dirt festivals in the outback with my dad. And I would just play as many shows as I could through my teens until I dropped out of school. And then I one day dreamed of gigging and living and performing in the heart of country, Nashville.
Yeah, absolutely. And you live in LA right now, correct?
I live on a farm just an hour outside of LA. Well, it's kind of a farm. I mean, it's only 1 acre and there's no animals, but we have fruit trees.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I remember talking to I think he was one of my family friends, and they live in Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh, beautiful.
And they said you should really come down there because they were talking to me about it. They just said that I know you love country music, and
Mhm.
like their part of where they live is sort of just all cornfields and those things. And I was like, that's just a really cool thing. And like even when you go to like different parts of this area,
Mhm.
there are places where like there are farmhouses in the middle of nowhere, and it's just green grass all over. um and so I need to talk to you about obviously we have to talk about your musical household. Was music just always around when you were growing up?
Well, I found my dad's old record player when I was a kid, and it was around the time where I gave up dancing and I picked up the guitar and I never put it down since. And I found dad's old, Peter Frampton records, Carole King, the Eagles, Dire Straits, and I started hearing all this rock music. And then my nana was into a lot of Elvis Presley and Dolly Parton, Rolling Stones, and all. Yeah, so that rock and country and blue. And then I later on got into Jimi Hendrix and blues. And I heard the British rock, the Beatles, and that all kind of just started coming into my songwriting. All those influences of my dad's records, but he didn't play guitar, but he would help me lug all my amps and guitars around. And my uncle, he was a country music singer in Australia. He actually just passed away, and he wrote a song called "Redback on the Toilet Seat." That was a hit in Australia. So I guess I have country music in my blood, but it was one of those things where I just had to get into my own space, and I kind of wanted to recreate. I wanted to be like the Eagles one day. That was a
Absolutely.
yeah.
And can I ask about you just talked about the Eagles and Carole
Mm.
King and those inspirations of yours. Was there like a favorite song out of all those artists that you mentioned that you listen to on a constant basis?
Well, I think Hotel California is one of my favorite songs. All the layers, all the harmonies, just everything about it. But the second song I learned on the guitar to play, besides Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, was Take It Easy. So I like Take It Easy. And also my good friends Willie and Emily Golden and the Goldens just released that song in Peaceful Easy Feeling. So everyone
Yeah,
out there should check it out.
absolutely. I love the Eagles. I think it was not too long ago that I was actually trying to learn the lyrics to Peaceful Easy Feeling.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and like it's so interesting. I'm a big fan of Vince Gill. Obviously Vince Gill sort of was
Oh,
the honorary member of the Eagles because of Glenn Fry's passing. um
right. Hmm.
and he talked about, like he didn't. I remember it was I think it was the CMT Giants. And Vince was talking about in a speech how playing it with the Eagles was an honor for him. And he
Wow.
and he says that, the band told me, don't always be the best person in the band because you'll never learn anything. So he says that they made him play up to them, um, rather than being the best one in the group. And that's something fascinating about Vince Gill is, you know, he's got some character in him that's, you know, he knows what it takes to get in this industry and be a success, you know. I mean, for
Definitely
you, for
legend.
for you, I mean, was it ever hard for you to just get your foot in the door and get those experiences?
Um, I early on as a kid and through my high school days, I didn't think music was hard. I was just writing what came out. I would lock myself in my room for 7 hours a night and play guitar. But the more I got into the industry, there is no formula. There is no one way of doing something. So I guess in those early days, I try to find what I am, even though I have a lot of influences, like what is my sound? Who am I as a person? What do I want to communicate when I write a song? And then navigating the music industry, I guess it all falls into place when you're just being authentic to what you want to, create and what you want your fans to hear.
Right, right. And do you feel like you just mentioned about like figuring out your sound? Do you feel like you figured that out now?
Well, I can play you a little bit of my new single if you want to hear it.
Yeah, I would love to hear it. And then I want to talk about, you know, like afterwards, to
Yes.
just like learn more about like if you ever now, you know, with all the experiences you've had in your career so far, is, you know, like have you now figured out what your sound of music is like?
I think I'm always evolving and always changing because I do like so many genres. Um, yeah, I mean, from jazz to blues and rock. I entered one of my tracks. I didn't really think I was a jazz artist, but then one of my tracks won World Songwriting Award for Best Jazz Song, and I was like, oh, okay. But so I think I'm always evolving. I feel like I'm closer to knowing what my sound is, but that's probably going to change. A big part of me, I love gospel music too. So I think that's merging a lot more now in my music.
Absolutely. So when we hear that new single of yours.
Well, I actually got the guitar right here if you wanted to hear a little bit of it. Well, I'll give you a little taste of I don't know if you've heard it online, Jigme, but it's called 17 Stars.
Ah, I remember seeing it on your Facebook page or wherever on social media. I remember
Oh,
seeing it. Yeah, I mean, so let's hear a little bit of that.
yeah, I'll just do like a verse and chorus, and then anyone that's watching can check out the music video that we just posted to YouTube. Yeah. Love the way that we argue on a Monday. It only takes 2 hours. Falling makeup by Monday, and I don't need flowers. Keep my soul divided, but I know who you are. And we don't need titles, babe. Just be who you are. Okay. I got 17 stars above me, and a God who really loves me. We'll start a family in the summertime. I got a house by the river, an apricot tree next to it. World could be falling, but I got a lot of faith. Got a lot of faith in you. That's a little taste of it.
Yeah, that's a really good a really good song. I
Thank
mean,
you.
I think you're good friends with Lead Newton, and uh
Yes,
yeah, we talked on the podcast a lot about music and Merle Haggard and those musical icons of hers, and
we love
honestly,
Lee Newton. We love what
yeah,
she's doing and all her album releases and winning a Josie Award. Yeah, she's doing incredible.
yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk about, I want to go back to talking about your musical inspirations, because you talked a lot about Elvis Presley and those heroes of yours. I remember watching the Elvis film for the first time. I
Which
think
one
it
is that?
uh I think it was the Austin Butler one. The
Oh,
Elvis
the new
film.
one just
Yeah, the
came
new
out.
one. Yeah.
Right. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I remember watching that when I think it was it I don't remember. I think it was a few days after it came out. I think it was definitely in the week of the release of the movie. I remember watching it and I was amazed at just how, I mean, how exact, the scenarios was. And then I remember watching Elvis. I started watching Elvis documentaries and now learning more about his life and how it kind of unfolded for him, and just so powerful to learn more about, he struggled so much, performing day in, day out, and getting addicted to all this substance abuse. And then, he basically like pushed himself to the point of death. Like he just pushed himself and pushed himself, and ultimately it had to end. It had to end because of all that he's been attracted to with performing. And so I want to ask you, when you go out on stage and you perform on a daily basis in front of crowds, does it ever get exhausting? And do you ever give yourself some time to just reflect back and be grateful?
Well, I'm grateful to get to do music as a job. I feel very blessed that I've got to do this my whole life. I wouldn't have chosen anything other. So that's what I'm grateful for. Do I feel like it's hard work, the gigging and like needing time to reflect? Well, when I'm on stage, that's probably when I'm my happiest. So I may go to a gig, maybe I have a cold or I'm feeling a little under the weather, and usually after my gig, I feel better. So it gives me this rush that I get from the crowd. And yeah, I like time to reflect, to write songs, but when I'm touring, that's when I'm my happiest. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember watching last night. I was just finishing up some questions for this interview, and I
Mm.
remember watching your video. I think it was the Crossroads, and you were introducing yourself as an
Mhm.
artist. And I remember just writing down some quotes that you were saying, mentioning about your music. And you said that my favorite part of the music industry is performing live to people and seeing their reaction and feeding off the crowd. To me, that's like therapy. It's the most unreal rush I've ever experienced, and nothing compares to it. Do you still feel like with now, like everything you've accomplished, that you still feel that feeling?
Or even more so, we're trying to plan a Nashville tour for this spring. A few things are in the works, and I just get such a rush from it. So, creating new songs, I always want to take them on the road and hear which ones do people like. I might think there's a song there that's my favorite, but people might think it's a different song. So, I always like to listen to people's stories after the show and meet everyone, and I call my supporters my koala bears. We have a Danni speaking show on Fridays, and we've had a lot of people join us at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time every Friday on Facebook. So yeah, I just love meeting people that enjoy listening to my music. It's a rush. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to quote you again on this thing. And this quote was regarding the one that you just mentioned about people hearing your music. You said, if people hear my music for the first time, whether it's in a recording or come to one of my live shows, I want them to leave my show feeling moved. I want my music to move them, to inspire them. My mom always used to say to me, comparison is a thief of joy. Always stay who you are and don't try to fit a trend or a box. I think that's so true for like younger girls in the next generation. If we could just be happy with finding what makes us uniquely special, you're going to be a
Mhm.
lot happier when you walk into that path. And if someone puts you down and doesn't like what you're doing, well, you're going to offend people, but you got to be true to who you are and your journey. And eventually something's going to hit. Um, I mean, you seem abundantly aware about um what you want your music to turn out and what you want your music to affect people like. When did you pick up that sort of that feeling for your music?
Well, that's very important to me. I think the reason we do music is to give back, is to make people feel something. So, music is entertainment, but we also have musicians have this privilege that we're able to touch people's hearts and souls in that 3 minutes that we've got with them. So, I think it's a privilege to be a musician. And it's so important that when I was a young girl, like a teenager, I used to sing in a worship team, And I guess that's what was preached around me a lot, was that message of you're beautiful with who you are, with all your imperfections. And I guess that somehow stemmed into my music because it's who I am as well. So it's all one at this stage in my life. And yeah, I'm super grateful. And yeah, it's very important to me that people feel something when they come to one of my shows. I don't want them to just hear music. I want them to go, wow, that song touched me. Wow, that gospel song made me feel closer to God. Or I want people to feel that.
Absolutely. And I remember, like for me growing up, I was listening to a lot of different nostalgic songs. I remember, I think it was my uncle's car. I remember his first car when he got his first car. I remember listening to Fergie.
Becky,
And
like I think.
and the song was Big Girls Don't Cry was the
Oh
song
yeah, big
that
girl.
yeah. And then I remember listening to a lot of Akon back in the days. Akon, Nobody was a song. And then Plain White Tees, Hey There Delilah was a big one.
Yes,
Um,
I love Hey There Delilah. That was a great.
it's a great song. Like as like someone that just sings songs for fun, like me, I like to sing. I love to sing Hey There Delilah. It's just it's a really cool song, and like
You want to give
um
us a snippet of it?
I don't know if I want to do that. I think you're better than what I do, but honestly, was there a lot of those nostalgic songs for you growing up?
Yeah, we had that playing on the radio. Hey There Delilah. I remember that one. Am I allowed to say this to everyone? But I was a big fan of the Spice Girls. Yeah, and Britney Spears.
Yeah.
Obviously, I studied the great guitarists and the real blues musicians, but then there's that side of me that really wanted to be Baby Spice.
Yeah, and what are those blues musicians that you're mentioning?
Well, Stevie Ray Vaughan, of course, that Double Trouble record, and also the tape version. The VH1, the tapes you used to put in before DVDs. Yes, I had one of those, and it started to not work because I played it so much. Clapton and Cream. And I heard Tears in Heaven. I mean, those riffs, that beautiful melody. And then Jimi Hendrix. So yeah, those main three heavily influenced my guitar playing.
For me it's Prince.
Oh, Prince?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prince. I also like to listen to John Lennon's music.
Oh.
Um, yeah, like crazy enough, I remember going to this festival that happens in every summer here, and they have this shop, and they have the store that just sells archived pictures that you can't find anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I bought two of them. I bought the Prince Purple Rain one
Mm-hmm.
when he's performing it live, and I bought the John Lennon one.
Yep.
And I think it was the picture in New York City. I actually have it
Oh,
here
okay.
somewhere.
You do.
There was the John Lennon.
Oh, with Yoko Ono. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I have
Is that
the
a vinyl, is it? That's
no,
one
it's
of the
not a
vinyl.
vinyl. No, it's not a
Oh,
vinyl.
okay.
But I do have records that I
Yeah.
collect. And this is the Prince one that I had.
Oh, that's epic.
Yeah. And then obviously I'm a huge fan of John Denver. I had to get a John Denver one too.
Country
Yeah.
Roads.
Yeah,
Country Roads.
and then I have a lot of the I have two Austin Butler Elvis laminated posters that I'm trying
So
to
you're
put
a
up.
big Elvis fan as well.
Like I'm trying to figure out like where do I want to put it on my wall because I'm trying to update my background.
Right.
But it's such a challenge. I have a Beatles one. Um, I was gonna leave it up for today's interview, but then I'm like, it looks so sloppy. I gotta like update everything, whatever. Um, but yeah, Elvis was a big one. I think Elvis was sort of the recent one that I just picked up on. I was just singing Elvis's I think it was Jim Reeves originally, Welcome to My World, and I was just singing Elvis's live version of that song.
Okay.
And
Yeah, he just had this package, didn't he? He had this amalgamation of the way he moved, the way he sang, his look, his style at the time was just so special and unique. And then he went into movies. He's just a
Yeah,
superstar.
absolutely. A lot. I think my music teacher in middle school, she's like, man, you have a deep tone that nobody else has. Like even with like this was very young. I was probably 13 or 14. I don't remember what age it was. And I had this deep tone, like just a really like Josh Turner type deep tone back then. I think I still have it, but I don't know. I gotta really try it out again. But
Oh,
um
awesome.
yeah, it like Welcome to My World was just, like I was closing my eyes while listening to that song, and I pictured Elvis Presley, and I said, "Oh my gosh, like if I can close my eyes and listen to that song, it feels like Elvis is standing right in front of me,
Wow.
just singing that song. Like it was his world, like the stage was his world,
Exactly.
but when you perform, do you feel the stage is your world?
Yeah, the stage is Danny Land. Becomes
Yeah,
Danny Island. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
I go into a dream state. I feel like I'm singing on a cloud sometimes. That's how it makes me feel.
Yeah.
There's no place
Um,
I'd rather be.
yeah, and obviously you also talked about in that Crossroads video about your dream of playing the Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah.
Because every country musician always has that dream to play the Opry. And it's hard to get that, invitation, but once you get it, that dream is just forever indebted in your mind and you'll never
So that's
forget it.
the dream list. The to play at the Grand Ole Opry. I'd
Yeah,
love to.
and obviously you
Yeah.
played at the Sydney Opera House.
I played at the Sydney Opera House, yes, when I won the Spiritual Song of the Year for the Music Oz Awards, and that was a real treat. Um, Such a special time in my life was playing at the Sydney Opera House.
Yeah,
I love Sydney, and Bondi Beach is absolutely
yeah,
gorgeous.
yeah.
So get invited.
Yeah, could you tell us more about that experience of playing the Sydney Opera House?
Yeah, I took out the award for my song Victory. That was on my last record, We Are the Music Makers. And I produced this little record in my hometown, Perth, and I submitted it to Music Oz Awards. And yeah, it won the Christian Spiritual Song of the Year. And I got a call from the gentleman that runs the award show saying you can sing before the event, and it's going to be hosted at the Sydney Opera House. And I was so thrilled. I only got a couple of days notice, and I booked, my ticket, and it was the funnest experience ever. And it was a red carpet event, and but I wasn't expecting to win. That was the cherry on the top.
Absolutely. And like there are some questions that I want to ask you, and these are going to be some challenging questions. I always like to have the normal questions, warm-up questions at the beginning, and then get into more of the challenging questions, but really, really strong questions at the very end of the interview. And so I'm going to ask those now. Um,
Sure.
how do you define genre?
How do I define my genre?
Well, how do you define genre as in general?
Well, it's pretty open-ended these days. So I guess, the roots of where something came from, whether it's rock, blues, country, but then these days everything's kind of blending into one. I mean, bits of country come from rock and roll, bits of blues come into rock as well. As it all started somewhere. But I think we all pull from different influences. I mean, I call Nat King Cole jazz, but then he may do something that's he may cross genres as well. So I think genres is kind of, I mean, there's for iTunes charts, it's a certain type of sound that you have that classifies you in a genre. I don't fit in one genre, so I'm not the best person to ask for that one. I like too many genres.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've
Yeah.
I've always I've always said that I think I remember at first when I said that James Taylor was country. Nope.
Mm,
Like he's more of like the folk type of
folk.
artist, like
Yeah.
I have his record that has the Carolina in My Mind song. And then
Yeah.
also
Good song.
he just has a lot of, like what's
You've
that
Got a
song?
Friend. That
Yeah,
was a
you've
classic.
you've got a friend was a really good one too. There's just another one that I don't remember what it's called. But it's a really good song. And then I also like listening to a lot of Kenny Rogers. I'm a big
Ooh,
Kenny Rogers fan.
Yeah.
Lionel Richie was also a big one here.
Oh yeah.
Lionel
Mhm.
Richie, oh my goodness. Like I remember I posted on my main YouTube channel, I posted a cover of I think Say You Say Me and Stuck on You. And those were the two songs that really hit the most, like, Say You Say Me. And then Lionel just has that thing that he always does whenever he's finishing a lyric where he just says, Say You Say Me, like he has that like type, like that thing he always does in between lyrics. um
Oh,
and it's his thing, it's his identity thing that just keeps him as Lionel Richie. That's his style. Like, and for you, I think you've had that style of country mixed with the blues, and also a lot of crossroad music. It's I remember Alison Krauss, Alison Krauss,
oh,
Vince Gill. Here's two worlds combining. Here's a bluegrass singer that just plays the fiddle and the violin or whatever. And
that
then you
album.
have Vince
That
Gill.
she did that album with Robert Plant as well from
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin. So that was a pretty cool thing for Alison Krauss to do.
Yeah, and Chet Atkins was also a big one too. And everywhere, like there was just music that was influenced from all different types of genres. And so as we're wrapping up here, I want to ask you about, you talked about the stage being your happy place.
Yes.
And you talked about your experiences at the Sydney Opera House, and all the experiences you've had so far. Do you feel gratified by all those experiences?
Yeah, I feel grateful for all of those experiences, but I feel like I still have there's a lot of things ahead of us, me and my team, and I'm grateful for the people that have come into my life and had success. Lee Newton's just released Stuck on You and her new album. So I've got all these people around me that are doing so well, and me and my team have a lot of things ahead of us this year that we want to accomplish. So I think everything's going up right now, and we've had a lot of radio play and press come in this month, and yeah, I'm just aiming for the top right now.
Absolutely. And one last question I want to ask you, and this is gonna be the toughest question you've ever gotten, I hope.
Ooh, uh-oh.
And I don't remember if I asked. Oh, actually, I did ask Lee Newton
Better
this
get my
too.
coffee to answer this one.
So the question is, when you get to heaven, if you were to play a song with anybody who's already there, who
Oh,
would it be, and what song would you play?
oh man. I would want to play guitar solo behind Elvis Presley. I Can't Help Falling in Love. Bang.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I mean, how can you not go wrong with can't go wrong with Elvis Presley, obviously. But would there be anybody else that you would play a song with that is in your mind right now?
The first one that came to mind was Jimi Hendrix as well.
Yeah.
I would love to meet him in general, so that would be completely epic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I think it's Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra. Ooh.
Yeah, Frank
Sorry.
Sinatra. I would love to do a duet of My Way. That's
Oh,
that's
wow.
that's that's the big one. Also The Way You Look Tonight was also
Mm.
one of my favorites as well. Well, we've come to the end of this interview, but thank you so much for chatting with me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on your great show, and it's been such a pleasure.
To the listeners
Finally.
who made it this far into the episode, thanks so much for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with American Australian country singer, songwriter, and guitarist Danni Stefanetti. If you want to connect with Danni, you can find her on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. To help support my show, please feel free to share with family, friends, or on social media. You can listen to my show on all podcast streaming platforms, including Spotify and YouTube. And you can find me on all social media platforms as well. I've been your host, Jigme Kelsang. Thanks for tuning into the show.
Thank you.